I see more people are coming in, and I hope I'm audible to everybody. A very warm welcome to everybody. My name is Mehtab Singh. I am the marketing and sales specialist for Nodinite, always aware, and we are here to make you guys more aware of what Nodinite can do. So the Nodinite Show basically is an initiative by Nodinite and its partner companies to help our prospect users and our customers know that how Nodinite has been shaping the integration environments for our users and our customers, and how do we plan to do it in a better way. With me are joining Henrik Eriksson, who looks after the partner strategies. We have Patrick, our integrations expert, who has been working with Nodinite for more than 6 years, and his colleague Bjorn Hackberg, and our very beloved the CEO, Michael Olsen, who is the mastermind behind Nodinite. Uh, Over to you, Patrick. Let's begin and show everybody what we've done with our customer Paulig in the Azure environment.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated being here. So today I and Björn will talk a little bit about our implementation of Nodinite at Paulig. And I will just start a short presentation on what my company is, and of course what Paulig is. So both me and Björn is working at Enfo Group, and we are a Swedish-Finnish company located in both Gothenburg, Stockholm, and of course Helsinki, and a number of other cities here in Sweden and Finland. Our main areas of expertise is of course integration, which we will be talking about today, but we also have application, data analytics, and teams in digital trust and managed services and cloud. So a little bit about Paulig. Perhaps not everyone knows what Paulig is, but there will be some very known brands that belongs to Paulig. It's a family-owned, was a family-owned business founded in 1869, and there are a number of well-known brands like Santa Maria, Poco Loco, and Risenta as well. So it's based in Europe with both offices and factories, and the main areas is the Nordics, Baltics, Great Britain, and Belgium. And the largest factories are in Great Britain and Belgium. Pretty big company. They are around 2,100 employees, and around 20% is in Sweden and 20% in Finland. And Belgium is the largest area with almost 34-35% of the employees. One thing that Paulig is it's in a very expensive mode. It has started to grow a lot and have a lot of new markets coming up, and of course the integration part is also increasing with that. So what did we face when we started talking about the implementation of the new integration platform at Paulig? The main driver was that they needed to move away from an on-premise and data center-centric platform, which was of course also in a number of components was in the sunset mode. And they also felt that it was very hard to navigate through the different logging points and trying to understand all the data that was coming into the integration platform. So they needed to move away from that. And when they started looking over the different components, integration components, they decided that the Microsoft Azure was the appointed one. And of course, it was deemed necessary to start moving away from the old platforms and go to Azure Logic Apps and functions as a part of the integration landscape. One of the things that Paulig decided and was necessary to achieve was an understanding of the different integration flows, but also to enable end-to-end logging in the platform. And also one of the main areas was to ensure that the platform was up to par with the different performance key figures and the cost demands. That was very significant for Paulig. As I said, there was Paulig is in an expensive mode, and we are always we are increasing the number of integrations day by day, and the current situation is that we have around 100 logic apps running in the production environment. And what we're going to do now is Björn will take over here soon, and he will show you a pre-recorded film, and describing the platform, the integration part of it. And I will come back after that one. So over to you, Björn.
Thanks a lot. If everything is working nicely, then you should be seeing me now. Can anyone confirm that my screen is on show?
Yep, it's working.
It's working, good. First, I'm going to talk a bit about the importance of correlation ID and tracked properties, since we at Paulig have been doing microservice-based logic app integrations, and it's extremely important to follow the flow. So if we have a look at the log views, Nodinite, we can take a look here, and the display results are grouped on the correlation ID. So the correlation ID is the thing that ties together everything so that you can follow the flow between many different logic apps. We invented a system for keeping statuses, as you can see on the right side here, with status codes representing different type of how well the things are going or how bad. Different types of errors and different types of successes. So to get the data into Nodinite, we need to first of all set things in the logic app. So we need to have a custom tracking and the ID in the logic app set up so that it groups the data. And we also need to do logging, and we create a JSON schema for the logging, and in the settings we set the tracked properties. So here you can see a bunch of tracked properties, what we think are important to keep track of, and of course there this log status, it must be a 1 in this stage when we go into the logic app. But 1 is a successful logging just. And at the end of the message, when everything has been processed well, we have a compose step where we tie all information together and log it into the tracked properties. You can see here again comes a lot of different parts, and the status code, since this was a success, is also set to 1. But if it unfortunately doesn't work, we go into the error handling. and there we also do logging, and we fill out, grab the data together so that you have all relevant data logged. And you can see here that in this case it must be a logical error, so then it sets status code 22. And then we have done the logging in the logic app, and we will have a look in Nodinite again and how it actually looks in a log view. So we take a log view for a certain flow, and we set the time span to where we expect to find some problem, because we have received this problem from the business. And yes, we find 2 posts. We take a look now at the good one, the green one first, and just see how everything goes from blue, 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 and down and ends with a green one, which means a successfully reached endpoint. So that's status code 2 on the last step there. Then we take a look at this one that is the errorless one. You can see in the document IDs that there are multiple documents IDs. So there are many messages and many logic app runs for each message. But we see the faulty one, we see marked in red, since we have configured the 20 to 22 and 30 to be in red here. We can expand that one, dig down. There is a run name of the logic app logged. It's quite handy when you come into really looking into details of the problem. So let's move back to the world of logic apps again. We take the logic app that has the problem, paste in the run ID we just copied in the search field, and voila, here is our logic app. We take a look at the faulty step and see that, okay, it didn't go well. It had a status 404. When I try to write, we do log the error. So here is all the data that we send into Nodinite that resulted in the view we saw in Nodinite. So I think that's all for now. Come back with questions later.
Thank you very much, Björn. If we see what we actually did achieve. So as you could see, that what we did was that we created predefined common logging patterns and rules to ensure that all the logic apps and all the logging was done in a cohesive way. And this pattern was guided by Nodinite and our baseline framework, both for logging and the repository design and documentation of the integrations. One of the benefits using Nodinite was that we could delegate the logging views so that the correct people and teams got the correct information. And the correct information was done by doing a lot of search fields creation and ensure that sorry, now my can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. The system just said that I'm not sharing. Yes, so as I said, the benefit of using Nodinite was that we could delegate the logging views to the correct teams and departments and people. And to ensure that they got the correct information, we used a lot of search field design so that they could get the correct information. And of course, that is a time saver, that we see what's actually happening in the integration landscape. One more thing that we did was that we heavily integrated Nodinite into the development pipeline, both as a tool for the developers to use as a bug checking, but also to ensure that all the integration actually can handle the loads and peaks of data that we know that the production at Paulig demanded. And it was very good to ensure to have that gatekeeper, so to speak. So Nodinite became a very important tool in the development pipeline. And by that, I will hand over to Täby again.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick and Bjorn, for walking us through the work you have done. It's really tremendous and overwhelming to see what Nodinite can do for our customers and can handle the load here. Now let's find out that why Nodinite is the best tool for monitoring Azure environments. Over to you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Trying to find the share screen button here, just disappeared for me. Can you make me the organizer here again? Let's see, there.
Yeah.
Now show my screen. So now it's working again.
Yeah.
Good. So thank you. So I'm the lazy guy here. So I'm going to recap a little bit about what Patrick and Björn just showed you. They showed you quite an advanced implementation where they are using a lot of context options available in Nodinite to transfer data, sort of. So you know about bits and pieces already up in the integration in the workflows, and we make use of that in Nodinite later on, as you saw with the log views and things like that. So I'm going to so you saw what data could be achieved by the logging in this case. So I was actually going to explore this further in my session here now and tell you a little bit about how we did this. So we're going to look at the how next. And in my demo here that I'm going to do, some of you have seen this in the past, but I will have another angle on this today. But anyway, my solution here, we start with an API management entry point. We will target a logic app A, which also adds the correlation to service bus message. In another session, we plan to show you, because we will deal with this from our BizTalk environment, keeping track of the correlation ID to process it further and have the correlation intact over the sequence. And then next, this logic app talks to another logic apps, and this logic app talks to a function. And we use a few different technologies behind the scenes to achieve this. So the API uses a policy-based logging scheme. And in logic apps, you simply enable the diagnostics. This is all very well documented. You also have ARM templates available, so it's dead easy to apply the diagnostic settings. If you're using a standard, workflow standard, then it's even easier because then the diagnostics is on the app service plan level. It's a higher level. So you actually don't need to set it that granular as you do for the consumption-based. So I will kick off this with a small demo. And as you know, in our Azure monitoring, we have a lot of stuff going on for Azure. So anyway, to make a long story short, I'm going to invoke this API from Nodinite. So I will call this, and I did some preparations here. So I have this message that I'm going to send to this API. And look closely now. Microsoft and Nodinite, if you are lazy, if you don't want to do it like Enfo just showed, where you could have, you could correlate on shoe size or order number or whatever, obviously you could send the shoe size as the client tracking ID. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to do one here, episode 1, and maybe I don't remember which number I was on, so I will use 103 to know that this is correct. And then I need to simply type the content type, because this was an XML message and my logic needs to know about that further down the road. But anyway, I will kick off this, and it will obviously take a few seconds for all parts involved in this chain of events to deal with this. Yeah, it worked nicely. So anyway, let's go back a little bit here. So if we are on the logging, which is what we're talking about right now, this all started with Azure API management. This is where you have the policy-based logging. Then it went to logic apps. And as you can see in our documentation, you will have links to get the ARM template. You will need this because you don't want to click on every logic app to enable the logging. So you can automate this. We are logging to an event hub. You need to know that there is no there could be sensitive data in the event hub at this stage, because maybe you promoted passwords or you promoted in the track properties. If you have sensitive data, then you should be cautious about that. Anyway, if you enable the diagnostics, the engine, the Azure engine, will emit event hub data. We will harvest these, process them, and based on your filters, and we've made quite advancements. So you all should know that we are working on a new generation of this agent, and we have like 5 partners and maybe 10 customers who is using the latest version. It's not available in the portal, it's not available in the update tool. So it has been given to a selected few to make sure we get the next generation of this agent production ready. And you will see that in progress today. Enfo and Paulig has not been using this version. So what I'm showing you today is a bit new, or at least makes it even easier to work with. So anyway, let's go back to the logging thing here. If you want to be lazy, I'm going to be lazy here. I'm going to run the admin view to get all the data, and then simply group my result by the application interchange ID. So Nodinite has this built-in feature that make use of the correlation. And the correlation is the same through this sequence that we just saw today. And here you can see that episode 1, S1E1, this is the one we sent to the API management recently. And also you can see here, if we expand this from the bottom to the top, the first message that entered the system, this was the API call. And then we had something calling logic app A, calling logic app B, and then we had our function. So as you can see, we are stitching the XMS client tracking ID. It has poisoned all the log events. And I had to code a little bit in the function, because the function needed to look in the header, is the XMS client tracking ID there? Add it to the context options, so we propagate it. In the past, you've all been working with the systems integrations for a very long time. When you were using flat files, FTPs, and so on, you would put this kind of information in an envelope. And with the APIs and BizTalk and even logic apps, you could argue that, and that's what Björn and Patrick showed you earlier, it is possible to add this as metadata, as track properties. In Nodinite, this would always become the part of the context properties. So you would find the correlation inside the context, and that's what keeps this thing together. About maybe we should clarify a little bit on that as well. So if I have any logic app here, let's have the entry point thing here. So if I look at the details for this logic app, then I can simply and easily navigate to Azure. And I'm doing this because I wanted to show you that there is nothing, we haven't added any connectors or any, you know, there's no special thing here, it's plug and play. But if you want to accomplish what Björn and Patrik did, then you might need to add the track properties to add the, you know, the additional nitty-gritty details that you might want to have. And as you can see here, when I'm sending the service bus message, a message to the service bus, I will poison it. I will add to the headers the client tracking ID. This is to make sure that I can keep the correlation ID intact through the whole chain. And as you can see, this is nothing to do with Nodinite. We're not hard coding the solution to Nodinite. We're just making sure that the client tracking ID stays in the process, right? Anyway, let's go back. So I think I had other runs that failed here for me. Let's have a look at that. So let me just close that one down, and maybe it was in this one. Doesn't matter. Look, in Nodinite, based on this logging that you saw with the diagnostics, without logging to Nodinite, and that's new with this generation of the agent, you don't need to log to Nodinite. What I'm talking about here is this step. We harvested the diagnostics data, but you don't necessarily need to log it to Nodinite to get the feature I'm showing you next. So in here, whenever there's a failed run, and Björn, you were onto this, but you follow this through the logging. But you can do the same thing from the monitoring. So if there is a failed run, then maybe the correlation, that's when you did it like I did, right? You sent a correlation ID into the system, but still you will have a run for it. So when Björn showed you how to copy that, if this was a failed run, it's even simpler because you can click on the link here, and then we will jump to this particular run. And this is basically the same thing that Björn showed you, but from the monitoring angle, not from the logging angle, right? And if I wanted to have a look at what this run looked like in Nodinite, I would simply look at this, and you would have all the wherever there was a body, you would see it in Nodinite as well. So you actually don't need to jump to the Azure portal to look at the data, all depending on your filter options. I did not intend today to go through the new filter options in depth, but you should be aware that we've made it substantially easier to narrow down what you're actually interested in and what you're not interested in. So this was a little bit about how this was done. So policy, diagnostics, and Serilog made this chain complete. And in the next part of my presentation today, I wanted to talk a little bit about, maybe more about, why are you logging in the first place? Do you really have the insights to know what's going on? And we've made some quite we've made some observations during the development of this new generation of the agent. And I'm actually going to challenge you all guys today here about how you think about the data that you're logging and so on. So an unexplored feature of Nodinite, I'm not sure that you know about it, but we have perpetual statistics in Nodinite, and that was introduced a few years ago. So there is a really nice endpoint and message type statistics. So let's have a look at this. So Let's jump back to the run that we just had with my 20 runs, 20 log events, given my filters. And in Nodinite, if you click on this small button next to the action button, then you will see additional details about this particular log event. And as you can see here, we have the message type, which is obviously crucial to Nodinite because we tie the search fields to this thing. We also tie the data either from the body, right? So either this was the body message or it came from the context values. It really doesn't matter. But what I wanted to show you here, if you click on this cog, then we will jump to the management of this particular, in this case, it's the message type. And as you know, in Nodinite, you can add custom metadata to this. I'm not going to talk about that today, but you have the option to do so. Also in Nodinite, you will remove data based on the data message type. So you can, and that's what Björn and Patrick did. They overloaded, they added some metadata already up in the logic app, in the workflow, to make it a little bit easier to work with the message types in Nodinite, because we have no idea what the message type is. So we are creating a name based on the shape name. You can override this. So if you want, and that's what, again, what Patrick and Björn did, if you want explicit control, you can have that. So anyway, if we look at the statistics here, and we look maybe the last week here, then we can see that in the last 7 days, I have been sending this particular order this many times. So that's obviously a good thing. In earlier versions, you didn't have the ability to change the time frame here, but you can do that nowadays. And obviously, it's also quite interesting about this data, because if you think about it, where have we been managing orders? So these are all the endpoints where we have processed orders. And if you look at it the other way, if we go back to the log view, and let's look at the endpoint instead. So if I jump to this particular endpoint, we also have the statistics here. But here you can see that I have been processing these types of message types on this particular endpoint. So that's quite nice information to have. Also, this helps you find integrations that are dead or protocols that are no longer in use, or actually, you really can't beat the performance here. If we go to the admin view, I'm going to use that as a shortcut. And let's search for the supply chain thing here. Look, I don't even need to perform the search. I know that the last time we logged an order was at this point in time. That's a really fast way to get the left or right. Do we have the data? Yes or no? Yeah, let's jump back. So that was a clarification, or a little bit exploring the statistics in the perpetual statistics that we have in Nodinite. Okay, that was actually a mistake. You should not have seen that, but okay. Anyway, this should have been 2 slides. Sorry for that. So I'm giving up some of the findings already here, but look, the whole concept of building the stuff that you do in Azure is to create microservices. And let me show you what I mean here. In our Azure monitoring, let's jump to monitor, let's jump to the Azure. And here you have all the different categories, and you might have functions, right? So let's actually filter on function here. So you might have a lot of functions, And in Nodinite, you can get alerts if these run too fast, you know, too often, to not at all, or if they run for too long a time. But if you have several hundreds of these, how do you know how well these are behaving? So in Nodinite, we invented, and this has been around for quite some time, but you can go to the website function app. This is, you know, the container, as you know, for the functions. And inside here, you have a quite good report about how well your functions are behaving. And as you can see here, let's have a look at function 3. It has ran 7,732 times by now, but it has actually never succeeded. This is quite a bad function, right? And I'm not able to show you customer data today here, but we've seen functions that's running for hours. Is that really a microservice, or what's going on there? Are you even aware of this? And if you look at function 2, when I went back 4 weeks, it hasn't run at all. So this is probably a dead function. So you can use these statistics to get insights about the performance and the number of invocations. And ultimately, this will render costs for you. You will have runtime costs associated with the stuff that you deploy to Azure, right? If we jump to workflows next, because yeah, that's a lot of what we are dealing with nowadays. We've seen quite some amazing figures regarding costs. And as you know, there is a cost, especially for consumption-based workflows, that you have a cost for the actions. And if you think about this one step further, in Nodinite, when you do the logging, this is the part where you do the logging. If you have the simple solution with the diagnostics enabled, this is like orchestration debugger in BizTalk, or it's a verbose logging, you will get a lot of data. So maybe you apply some filters to, you know, not get all the data because you're not interested in all the data. But then if you don't log it, then you will not know how good it is performing. So what I wanted to show you next is we have a lot of logic apps. You can have several hundreds. And we have actually one of our customers is running this version of the agent with quite many. It's actually a shitload of data. And that's also why we needed to get a better understanding on what's going on behind the scenes. And what's new here is that on the resource group level, we invented a new statistics page. It is very similar to the function statistics that I just showed you. But if we look at this one, I don't have that much data in my demo environment, but you do get the point here. How many times have we run this when we go back some time? How many times has it failed? When it ran the fastest or the slowest, what were the times for that? But what I wanted to have some discussion about with you today is these two columns. The maximum number of invocations, that is for a single run, how many actions did we invoke? And if we take 16 times 3, we will actually end up with 48, but this figure could be less. So this is the max. But the point here is, we've seen solutions out there with more than 300,000 invocations to process a single message. That's like 66 euros to process a single message if this was in the consumption-based arena. I think you will have good use of this report in real life, and this will help you cut costs, I'd say. So yeah, I think that will have to do it for today. We are running short on time. So Tabby, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael, for so much insights on how Nodinite is helping the Azure environments when it comes to deep integrations. Please feel free to write to us. We can, spare a couple of minutes if somebody should have any questions, or if not now, we would send out a link to this webinar as well so that you can share it with your colleagues. And please feel free to write us on the email ID that you see on your screen right now, and we would be happy to answer you back. And also open to feedback from all of you, and hope to have some questions which we can write back to you and probably present them in the next episode of the Northern Light Show. Sign off, and thank you so much for joining. Please take care. Goodbye. Thank you.